The timeline of a top professional tennis player's career is fairly simple. You typically have some wonderkind junior who is leagues ahead of his peers, win a few junior Grand Slams, quickly progress through minor league futures and challengers events and into qualies and main draw pro tournaments, and by the age of 22-23, years of well-publicized grinding and ascent have secured them a ranking spot in the top 25 for the foreseeable future. Conversely, a recent trend this past decade has seen the rise of late bloomers in professional tennis, where the unremarkable likes of Stan Wawrinka or Angelique Kerber lie steady yet dormant within the top 50 in rankings for years before experiencing a mid-career surge of success in their late 20s. So there are prodigies, late bloomers, and then there's Aslan Karatsev. A post-pandemic Russian machine, the unheard-of tennis player burst onto the tennis scene in a major way in 2021, marching his way into the Australian Open semifinals as a qualifier. Not to be billed as a one-hit wonder, he followed this up just 1 month later with a maiden ATP 500 title, dismantling opponents with a hyper-aggressive style of playing not even the hardest-hitting top-ranked Andrei Rublev could handle. Any doubters who still questioned his legitimacy as a top player then watched as he defeated undisputed number 1 ranked Novak Djokovic in the latter's home tournament of the Serbia Open, thus plastering his image across news outlets throughout the world, making him a household name to anyone remotely following professional tennis in 2021. All of this in 3 months. Though in the grandest sense he arguably did come out of nowhere, a look at Aslan's results over the past year reveal a player many overlooked as a potential star. A sleeper success story whose 2021 dreamlike fame overshadows years of dedicated training and sacrifice to prove himself by improving results. What the results don't show, however, is perhaps the luckiest set of circumstances possible that allowed a player ranked 263 in 2020 to reach the Australian Open semifinals just 11 months later, a result that opened the door for Aslan to hit the ground running at any premier event he wanted. Who is Aslan Karatsev, and how exactly did the stars align perfectly for him this year? To truly understand the Russian, we need not look here or here, but here. See, though born to an ethnic Ossetian father in the North Ossetia Alania capital city of Vladikavkaz, a republic of Russia, Aslan moved to Israel at 3 years old, where he first took up the sport of tennis. Following the decision to train seriously at 7 years old, Aslan's talent propelled him to junior success, becoming the top-ranked Israeli for his age group and traveling internationally to compete in prestigious events. Despite his prospects, the Israel Tennis Federation did little to nurture the budding player, funding only 2 to 3 plane tickets a year and denying him enrollment into the Ramat HaSharon Tennis Academy, a training facility necessary for his professional advancement. Finding a secure sponsor back in Russia, it was then in 2009 that Karatsev added red to his national representation and began his journey into the professional tennis space, a journey that up until now appeared jagged, crisscrossed, retread upon many times, and almost given up on with no end in sight. Why? Well, behind every famous tennis player you see on TV lies hundreds and hundreds of so-called journeymen wishing they could take their place. A journeyman, by definition, is a player who is technically competent but otherwise unable to excel. In team sports, these players are often traded between clubs or teams every couple of seasons with little fanfare and otherwise see little playing time. As his age increased but career potential stalled, Aslan Karatsev became the epitome of a tennis journeyman. A player who solely competed at second and third rung challenger and future events, trading wins with losses and maintaining a ranking deep into the hundreds. Attempts to advance his career saw him permanently move locations many times, relocating from Rostov to Moscow, then on to Halle and eventually Barcelona, each time seeking new coaches and mentors who could help him achieve the potential he had the discipline to achieve, but with no results to show for his efforts as his attitude and aspirations never fit with those around him. Though a lack of sponsors, serious knee injury, and tumbling ranking all the way down to 751 in 2017 caused Aslan to seriously consider quitting the sport for good after 8 years of professional play. According to the Russian himself, "In the end I found a coach, Yahor Yatsik, and this is the right guy for me. He's helped me a lot, more the mental part, and then of course there's the technical stuff as well." Having recovered from injury, playing well, and finally armed with the correct coaching and support system who shared Aslan's belief he was a top player, 3 years of focused and intense training produced improved results and higher rankings, where the name Karatsev was finding its place deeper into the draws of most minor league tournaments played. Though still flying far under the radar into the new decade due to a string of losses that capped 2019, Aslan had one goal for the 2020 season, a top 100 ranking finish, and he would do anything to achieve it. He didn't know then, but his all-or-nothing attitude and a tremendous amount of good fortune was not only the recipe for moderate success, but just so happened to be a one-way ticket to the very top. And in an ironic twist, he had no person to thank for it, but instead, a virus. Following a March 2020 worldwide shutdown due to the emerging pandemic, every professional tennis event was immediately postponed indefinitely or outright canceled, forcing most professionals without private resources to enter a prolonged quarantine consisting of minimal training and essentially wait it out. That was, unless you were a little resourceful. See, in response to the mass cancellations, scattered pro exhibition events popped up throughout the world which allowed players an outlet to continue playing and earn at least some money during the shutdown, some pulling this off more successfully than others. Instead of taking a prolonged break like many of his peers, Karatsev remotely secured a 4-week US residence at one of these events, playing a total of 23 matches in less than 28 days, compiling a 17-6 record in non-compulsory exhibition matches. Said tournament organizer Harry Sikma, "Aslan was a major warrior on our tour. He wanted to compete in multiple matches per day, and he thrived in the Florida summer heat at the Saddlebrook Resort. He literally was always keen to play 2 matches per day against top 200 caliber ATP players." Flushed with confidence and match experience following the successful US training campaign, Karatsev re-entered the professional minor league circuit almost a completely different player than how he had left it months prior, immediately making 3 back-to-back-to-back challenger finals, winning 2 titles and losing 1 final to 17th ranked Stan Wawrinka in a closely contested match. Further impressive results rounded out the year, pushing him just outside his self-imposed top 100 goal. Hard work got him just within reaching distance, but it turns out all Aslan Karatsev needed was a little bit of luck. So here's where things get interesting. Aslan began the 2021 season on a high note by winning all 3 qualification matches in Doha, Qatar needed to enter the following month's Australian Open, his first ever Grand Slam tournament. To prevent any infections, 2 private charter flights were booked for players to safely travel from Qatar to Australia for the event. A safeguard turned disaster after one of these flights and 2 other tennis charter flights coming into Australia from around the world had passengers that subsequently tested positive for the virus, forcing a total of 72 players into a 14-day, no-practice, hard quarantine right before the tournament was to begin. In Aslan's own words, "I got the healthy flight. I was supposed to be on the COVID-affected flight, but they made a mistake. There were a few players who were put onto the 5 a.m. flight, and that was the one without the virus. I was lucky." Good fortune followed, as due to Aslan's 2020 ascension in rankings thanks in part to the opportune circumstances that the pandemic provided, he was offered the number 3 spot for Team Russia at that February's 2021 ATP Cup, a position turned down by Russia's real third best player Karen Khachanov, who chose to play another event instead. Though on the losing side of all 3 doubles matches played, Team Russia would ultimately win the entire tournament, with Karatsev later commenting on his lucky break, "I learned a lot from being around Daniil and Andrei. I watched them. I saw how they played and how they behaved. It helped me a lot. Being part of the ATP Cup gave me the confidence to play on the big stage." Though few knew it, Aslan Karatsev walked out for his first round Australian Open match as potentially the most prepared player to make a deep run in the event, despite his unknown status and comparatively puny ranking. Perhaps one more lucky straw was all that was needed to break the professional tennis status quo's back. Turns out, that final bit of fortune had been right beneath his feet the entire time. Under analysis, the Karatsev game is built on a foundation that emphasizes fast, highly aggressive serve and ground strokes, never moving far behind the baseline in an attempt to steal time away from opponents in a manner similar to compatriot Andrei Rublev, yet taken to the next level. Though this all-or-nothing strategy produces an overwhelming number of unforced errors as a downside, under the right conditions appears downright impossible to play against, let alone react to. Now at that year's Open, what became immediately apparent to all players was how incredibly fast and low the ball bounce was compared to any other hardcourt event played in recent memory. As in response to complaints of slowness the previous year, the organizers removed the sand texture that had been designed to create friction and take pace off the ball, a move that heavily favored any player with a flat, offensive playing style. As if by destiny in the end, Aslan Karatsev used his years of hard work, toil, determination, and recent good fortunes to power his way from qualifying rounds to a Grand Slam semifinal, the first man ranked outside the top 100 to do so in 20 years, where his fairy tale run would be ended by world number 1 Novak Djokovic. Though amazing by any standard, the final question many must ask is, what does the future hold for Aslan Karatsev? Professional tennis has seen its unhealthy share of young one-hit wonders who play incredibly well for a tournament or even full season, but fall off soon thereafter due to injuries, lack of discipline, or frankly, lack of talent. If Aslan Karatsev's work ethic, journeyman years of experience, and incredibly well-formulated game tell us anything, it's that this newly christened star is more than likely here to stay, with further success just looming on the horizon.